Covered from last year, the P Core.
Yeah, the P Core. Yeah, that's right.
Remember Condition 4 before?
Yeah. What P Core are we? Are we still using the P Core thing?
We're in
I think
3.
we're still in 3. Yeah.
Oh God, we're the media.
I think four doesn't kick in until herd immunity, right?
No, 4 doesn't kick in until after the re-election. Hey, gotcha, zing. Ah, man, dude, so crazy. Trained so hard with Frank the Crank, man, and you guys might have heard.
It was supposed to be his comeback, because the last
time he got COVID.
COVID,
this time it was a car crash.
Yeah.
So anyway, he messaged me this. I don't know if I want to share this with you guys. I was like, hey, man, you okay? He was like, dude, crazy, bro. Car hit us, swerved into the concrete column, bounced off the concrete wall, flew over the hood of my truck and onto a Ferrari. All this was happening while trying to keep my truck from spinning, and the car was 45 degrees, almost perpendicular to the freeway. Cars were piling up, rolling metal flying everywhere at around 70 to 80 miles an hour. Some Final Destination stuff. He messaged me. So,
and for those of you who know about like California traffic, that was on the 405 freeway, so that's a busy one.
Right. Yeah.
Usually
the last time I was in Cali Road, a freeway was easy because there was so much traffic. You were going like negative 2 miles an hour.
You want me to read real quick what Kookie wrote on?
Yeah.
Kookie, okay, so Kookie Alvarez, like very good friend of ours, was coaching Frank and was getting ready to have him compete in what would have been his bout in UFC 263. Kookie from Saipan originally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kookie wrote, among other things, Frank had a CT and X-rays, showed nothing major as far as injuries, but they did detect some inflammation in his posterior longitudinal ligaments. We just had Dr. Ho.
Of course, right, yeah.
On his neck.
Man, that'll get you.
And they did an MRI, and then Kookie writes, the MRI then determined and confirmed that he has a herniation on his C7 and T1 spine. Of course, those the vertebrae. And because of this, Frank had to withdraw from his bout. But as you just indicated, he is in positive spirits, as he always is.
Right. So I asked him, I said, hey, jump on. He goes, yeah, kind of busy right now, bro.
Just a little.
No, I mean, he's doing like all the insurance. He was telling me, he's like, yeah, I got to go and claim all the insurance stuff for this.
Yeah, but you know what, guys? Frank is a man of faith, and he prays for you. So if you can, send some prayers up for him as well as for his lovely wife, Sarah, because that's some scary times, man.
Right. Yeah, and I was looking on her Instagram. She was actually traveling to go see him and their new baby girl.
Oh, well, now they can just turn it into a family vacay. Mark Mendiola, board. Hi, Mark. No, I mean, look at the.
Wait, you want to show this picture real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so Joseph, where's the camera? Okay, right here. I'm going to show you. We just put this on Instagram a few minutes ago. So there is a picture of Frank the Crank, obviously with a neck brace, just to make sure that if he sustained any injuries, just to stabilize him. But he's there with that signature smile, and just letting you guys know he's okay. So again, prayers for Primo Frank.
All right, Mark Mendiola, Board of Education Chair in the KUAM News Zoom room this morning. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, man, prayers to Brother Frank the Crank. He's actually maybe a blessing in disguise for the guy he's going to fight, because Frank was going to bring it to him, and, he was going to, this was, like you said, Bree, this was like his comeback, right? So he was been training hard here in Guam. He made it out to the States, and so our team, our Spike 22 family, just he's one of our top fighters, so we wish him well, and we're glad that he's able. When he was texting us late last night, we were just glad that he was able to text us,
Yeah, hey, Mark, interestingly enough, I'm looking at our our stats and our analytics and everything on our Instagram after we put that picture. One of the first Instagram accounts that liked that picture and sent their well wishes was the Guam DOE account on Instagram, because Frank does a lot for education. He speaks a lot to kids, and he's a family guy.
Right. Yeah, he's a family guy, and he's very inspirational. I mean, his story, his journey, so, man, when someone like that, and he was just sharing with us, it's like, what do you call that, that near experience, and so, yeah, he said, just hug your kids, man, and he knows my boys too, so we're family men, and yeah, we do a lot of things for our kids, and just when something like that happens, it makes you just even more, you want to hug those closest to you, but we're so glad that he's okay, and he's gonna come back from this. Frank is a true warrior, and I think
Yes.
he's in the best shape of his life. So, I think that is actually, that all that training that he's going through is prepared his body, but not only his body but his mind. So I think he's gonna be able to recover, and I just wish him well. Yeah,
You know, and when I messaged him early, early this morning. I get confused between the times back and forth, but he said that he's thankful for life. He's good to go and literally living to fight another day. And he said, "Please hug those you love a little tighter today."
Yeah,
So he's such a great
message.
guy.
Yeah, great message.
Well, hey, Mark,
Yeah.
real quick. Speaking of being in good shape, you were literally and metaphorically flexing to us during the commercial break. Can you wheel your chair back a little bit and let the people on Zoom know that you've been working out?
Oh, it's the gun show now.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Screenshot that, everybody.
No guns at school, Mark. No guns at school.
It's actually been a journey at the University of Guam. We started this thing called the Skinny G Challenge. And so there's with this pandemic, everybody's just trying to stay healthy, right? Not only physically, but also mentally. So, our nurse here, Nurse Georgette Apron, basically said, "Hey guys, we're going to put something together." And our dean of the college said, "Yeah, let's get healthy." So we have a good number of people. It's a pretty good pot, So
Wow.
well on our journey. I started at 255. I'm down to 230 as of this morning.
Nice.
So the journey is going to continue. So, and I think I have one of your colleagues there. She works out with me in the morning. So I told her I'm gonna, make it tight. So boxing tight,
All right.
But yeah, it's awesome. It's great. Thank the Paradise family for allowing us to come in, and I'm working with a bunch of young ladies that want to just stay healthy, but also learn women's self-defense. So that's pretty cool,
Sweet, sweet. I'm gonna go ahead and flex my biggest muscle for you guys real quick. Yeah. What about that, huh?
Yeah, I would say after working with you all these years, your jaw muscles are pretty shredded at this
No,
point.
my brain, Jay. My brain. I think I could bench like 290 with my brain. All right, can we get to work now, guys?
Sure.
Or
Absolutely.
want to keep chit chatting? I mean, it's fun, but
Yep.
let's
Absolutely.
roll up.
Good
Let's
morning,
roll up
Chris.
our sleeves so they can see our muscles, Mark, and get to work.
Right on.
What's
So-
go ahead.
Yeah, what's new? Hey, thanks for always having us. I know KUM has always been good with us bringing the message out to our community, and it's a great partnership. If John can't make it on, then definitely I try to make it on and just give our community a brief. So definitely appreciate that connection. I think a lot of our families, with the anxiety that happened with COVID, right? But this is the greatest time, so to speak, for DOE because it's graduation and promotions and everything that's going on. Of course, we all wanted to have the face-to-face graduations and all that stuff, but it was very tough and it's very challenging to pivot and change. I think we have close to 1,500 graduates from all the high schools. And then, of course, with all the promotions and with all fifth grade promotions to sixth and then the eighth through ninth, it's been very challenging. But I just got to give it up to the staff and the folks that, all these things have to be approved by our public health, and so that's some of the things that we have to factor in terms of timing, right? So this morning, I think we have a graduation. I think it's Southern High, if I'm not mistaken, one of the schools. But our folks are very excited. There's a lot of opportunities out there. GCC and UOG await some of these students. Of course, the military as well as the private sector. So I noticed there's some recent job announcements out there for people. So hopefully our students are able to. Those who want to get employed in the private sector will be able to do that. So, one of the things that we've been working on as a board, and I'll give it from the board's perspective, we've been working on our strategic plan. And the strategic plan is very crucial at this point because what is the Department of Education going to look like 5 years from now? Currently, we know that the pandemic has thrown a curveball, so to speak, in the way we do education, but we cannot just sit and think about and contemplate where we're in this current situation. It's what are we going to look like 5 years from now? And so with all the federal dollars coming into the Department of Education, it kind of gives the government of Guam a little bit of reprieve in terms of, the financial support. So we're going to start, we've already started fixing a lot of our facilities. There's a lot of things in the pipeline. Of course, there was conversation about Simon Sanchez. So that was well in the works where our community is meeting up in Simon Sanchez, the Jigo area, to determine the type of school that they're looking at. And so there's a lot of engagement going up there with the stakeholders. And then when it comes to the other schools, there was a thing called deferred maintenance costs that was done by the Army Corps of Engineers a couple years back. And they basically said it's going to take about over $100 million to kind of put the schools, bring them up to a certain standard, a certain level. So obviously, with the amount of money that has been coming in from Uncle Sam, we're able to help do a lot of these repairs. But it has to be attached to safely reopening schools, and so that's the key. And of course, when you're dealing with government, one of the toughest challenges you have to deal with is time. And so when I say time, we're talking about procurement timing. You got to get 3 quotes, or you have to bid them out, and then you got to factor it, and someone protests and all this other stuff. But I got to say that our DOE team, in terms of its audit, we've had clean audits for many years. I think 7 years at this point. And that goes to speak to the leadership of John Fernandez and the team when it comes to ensuring that we are, there's protocols in place and how we spend our money and where those funds are going. And we have external auditors coming in. We have the OPA office oversight looking over our shoulder as well. And then, of course, our oversight down at the legislature, Senator Tiliana Nelson. I can say over the years I've been working with the legislature in terms of her engaging is she's asking the tough questions, which is okay with us, but at the same time too, she's also lending the support. And then we had a good meeting with just recently with Senator Joe San Augustine. Now, this is the crucial point in our government, because this is where we all go before the legislature for our budget hearings. And so one of the things when we submitted our budget in early January 31st, by law, we're required to submit our budget. We submitted it, of course, with the 14 points in mind, and that thing came up to about 300 million. But what we did was we basically met with him and said, hey, give us a little bit of time, because there's guidance that's coming in from Uncle Sam, right? US Ed. And what could we use these dollars for? And then we can back out from some of the areas that we put in our budget. And so we were able to do that. And, we were able to do some facility issues, some, textbooks was another issue that we're able to, kind of look at in terms of, getting hard copy materials to supplement those items during this pandemic. So there's a lot of things going on, multiple moving targets within the Department of Education when it comes to seeing how we can maximize this funding. And it's over a period of time. And so initially when we first started, it was getting the technology into the hands of the families that needed it. So if you recall, we had 3 modes of learning. One was take home, face-to-face, and then of course online. So we pivoted and we changed, and we took out one, which was the take home. And so we asked families, please register your kids and let us know what you want to do. If you want to go face-to-face, you're welcome to do that. If you want to go online, then you're welcome to do that as well. But the other option, so if they didn't register for either one, we automatically just said you're in the face-to-face group. And so the challenge, Chris and Bree, that we're having right now, the Department of Education, is that 3 feet distancing that, they still want us to maintain. So if you do that in a classroom size, it's very tough to do that, because some of our schools were not designed for that type of spacing, right? And then you move into your common areas, your cafeteria, your libraries, your playground. What are those things going to look like? So I just want to thank all our administrators, our PTOs, and all those folks, because they went through all of this stuff, to put it all together and then get it approved by public health. And so our hope is to return to school in the next, next semester, next year or so, and just go back to normal. The more we get folks that are out there getting vaccinated, and of course we're getting all the PPEs that's necessary to handle the environment in the schools. I think that's the key component. That's the pivoting point for our Department of Education. So, the budget is important because, what is the Department of Education going to look like after all this money has been utilized, right? And that's the key. And that's where the strategic plan, the safe and healthy schools. And I'm very fortunate that I have a good cross-section of board members. We have Dr. Mary Okada, who's the vice chair, but she also on my budget and finance. Anybody knows finance, it'll be her. Then you have Ms. Gutierrez leading the effort with the safe and healthy schools. And so she's meeting with a lot of the folks. Some of the things on our plate aside from that is And our curriculum side is the grading policy. What is the grading policy going to look like? We kind of suspended that initially. And so there's a lot of conversation going on within the department. I'm just wondering how John Fernandez is maintaining all his hair because, I mean, there's just a tremendous amount. And sometimes, I try to communicate with them constantly, right? But at the same time, too, I understand there's only enough hours in the day to really, but he really needs to have the time to do the work and just decompress because I tell you, even the staff at the office were asked to do more with less.
Yeah.
And and when people were saying that the government was shut down, technically DOE was not shut down. We were still conducting schools, right? We had our SROs out there assisting with security. We had our nurses out there assisting with public health. We had our social workers going out. And so DOE at the forefront, we also had our school aides and those folks distributing food,
Right.
and our administrators were keeping the schools open and preparing for, all these different things. So there's a tremendous amount of things that goes on with DOE. And I just hope our community, appreciates the fact that DOE has remained constant in this whole entire global pandemic and this pandemic emergency. And not only are we dealing with public school kids, but we're the state agency also for federal funds for the private schools and charter schools. So I don't know if the community knows that, but a lot of the private schools are out there and they're touting that they're getting this and that and the other thing. Well, they're coming through the Department of Education. And, thanks to our folks at the federal programs, Ike Santos, and then of course to our curriculum with Deputy Joe Sanchez, Erica Cruz. I mean, these people, if they do not deserve pats on their backs, maybe big, high fives and all that other stuff, because, no one had a blueprint for how we were going to navigate through this whole process. And we were able to do that, of course, and just partnering with people and understanding and then bringing what we know and our knowledge and everything that we're doing out to the community. And obviously, we cannot please everybody. And there's errors, there's going to be pockets of errors that we need to clean up. But I reassure our community that when issues are brought up to the board or brought up to the superintendent, our priorities is really to ensure the safety of our kids, our employees, and those who come onto our campus. So
I wanted to ask.
That's
Mark,
pretty much our update.
Right, Mark. I wanted to ask.
Sorry, I was long-winded.
No, it's cool, man.
No.
But
Thank you.
I feel like you and John have the same barber. First of all. But
I'm more shiny.
right. Secondly, I wanted to ask about because we got not really a tip, but people were talking about staffing shortages for next year. I mean, are people leaving the Department of Education to private schools and other institutions? Is there a shortage, and if so, in what areas? And how are we going to deal with it?
Yeah, that's the big challenge. I'm a proud parent of a graduate. My son graduated from Teason High. My son Josiah Mendiola, and my son is a high functioning autistic child, and one of the toughest positions to fill is really special education. We got a lot of folks that are credentialed, and of course, we got to make it attractive for these folks that have these specialty degrees, but it's very tough to fill those positions. In addition to that, we also have folks that have retired, right? And the folks that are retiring, they're eligible for retirement. So, of course, they have an opportunity to come back. And some folks that I knew that retired say, hey, you know what? I cannot sit at home, so I'm going to come back and we're going to teach. So we definitely appreciate their commitment in helping our Department of Education. And then, of course, you got some employees that have passed on that, but at the Department of Education, it's always continuous, always trying to hire, needs. But when you have a graduation from GCC or a graduation from the University of Guam, that's where the recruitment really kicks into high gear. We try to get as much of these educators to come in and work at the Department of Education. But there are, certain, when you do a SWOT analysis, right, your threats, of course, are you got the charter schools that you have to contend with teachers, then you have the Department of Defense, you got the private schools. And so, being that we're the Department of Education, we're the largest agency in the government of Guam. And so, of course, we just got to go out there and, do our best to recruit these qualified individuals. And that's part of the 14 points. We have to have highly qualified teachers in the classroom. And so that's the reason why our budget is the way it is because we cannot just stick anybody in the classroom. And then even at that, getting substitute teachers, we usually have in our budget about 10% of our budget, personnel, our teacher budget. We kind of factor that in there so that, teachers do get sick, families do get sick. So we factor into that. But across the spectrum, Chris, yes, absolutely. We've been very consistent in terms of our hiring specifically for the schools, and we have not really hired as much in the central office unless it was essential, deemed essential by the superintendent. And that's where, of course, with the procurement, with that amount of money, our staff, our facilities and maintenance, we're telling the superintendent this is the time to beef up some of those areas because when we didn't have the cash to do these things, it was very tough to fill those positions. And so that's a challenge.
Mark, you mentioned the budget, and I think we've had lots of conversations with you about how the legislature has cut GDOE's budget over the past two fiscal years. You guys go in, ask for a certain amount, and you never really ever get what you guys request. And so with this 287 million in ARPA funds that GDOE is set to receive, do you have the list of the priorities that GDOE is going to be using the money for, and how much of that 287 is going to be used to offset any costs for the proposed FY 2022 budget?
Right. So right now we're back, like we're kind of looking at the numbers, right? So of course, guidance from you cannot supplant, you cannot use federal dollars that is already, towards certain things that the federal government wants also the stakeholders or the island community to ensure. And that's why there's this term that we always use, it's called the maintenance of effort. And that MOE is very important. We shared it with the legislature, and that's the average of your 3 years budget from the government of Guam. But of course, understanding that our resources tourism was down, right? And we didn't have the resources coming in. And the only thing that was really keeping the government of Guam afloat really is the stimulus package that was given. That's where the money circulating through the PUA, through all these other things. That's what's helping to keep the economy going. But once that runs out, and if our economy is not open, of course, it's going to be very difficult. So what is that realistic number is going to be? I always tell people this, that the reason why that number is really astronomical when we give is all the schools are submitting their budget to us based on the 14 points. Says you have to have a certified teacher, you have to have a certified administrator, a librarian, you got to make sure all the air conditioners are at a certain temperature. So you got all these 14 points, bus transportation, and that's where that number comes in. Now with the stimulus money that's coming through, of course, they're saying, hey, these are things that you guys can help to help you reopen school safely. So whether it be facilities and maintenance and some of these other costs that, collateral materials like such as desks, PPEs, all those different things. So right now, currently, our board is going to be meeting towards the end of the month. We have a budget on finance. The guidance has come through, but we're looking at about backing out about maybe close to $40 to $60 million in this upcoming fiscal year. So we don't know exact number at this point, but it's going to be a pretty good number. But you got to remember that 280 billion that you're talking about, Bree, it's spread over a period of time, right?
Okay.
And so we also have additional funding, of course, coming from the governor's discretion, and that's to help with the technology side of things. So that's what I'm saying. The strategic plan is very important. It's key because what is DOE going to look like, 5 years from now? And now we're seeing that there's a trend in education with the virtual technology and all this other stuff, that there may be some classes where students may be able to do it at home, I mean, these are the things that we as a community basically have to have that discussion of what is that going to look like, and then work with our partners, the GFT and, all the administrators at the school. What is it exactly, what is GDOE going to look like, in terms of moving forward? Right now, there's a heavy emphasis on STEM, which is, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? And of course, with all this technology stuff, they're putting in some serious resources to ensuring that the infrastructure for technology is going to be upgraded for many years to come. So that's the long-winded response to the question. But towards the end of the month, our board will be meeting, and we spoke to Senator Joseph Augustine prior to, and we basically said, can you give us a little bit of time? And he agreed that, yes, let me give you a little bit more time, and let's not rush this thing through, because we want to make sure that when we go down to the legislature, we're giving them solid figures and numbers that we know we can use federal funds for. A lot of folks don't realize that, it's not like, you can flip a switch and say, we're going to use all that 280 million for this specific area. There's a lot of discussion going on in the back as to what that, is it allowable? is it going to be sustainable? Those types of things. But for us, really, it's to open the school safely, building those canopies, the walkways, preparing the bathrooms, getting the furniture for the students in their classrooms. Those are some of the things that's at the priority level because that's part of the health and safety and the reopening of the schools.
Can you confidently say, though, that with all of this federal money, this $287 million that GDOE is receiving in ARPA money, that we will finally meet the 14 points of the Adequate Public Education Act? Because this is, former Senator Klitsky law from years ago. And I don't think GDOE has ever met the 14 points.
Yeah, when it comes to the funding, in my opinion, we have met the 14 points, meaning that we provide the services, right? Our teachers are certified, the bare minimum, the bare essentials free. But when it comes to the funding source of it, there's some areas, of course, like we wanted to institute the pre-K program. We wanted to, redo all the textbooks and get the textbooks all up to specs, right? And so with this federal money that's coming in, our resources, we're going to free up on the other side, on the capital side, to help out on those other areas, right? And so we just got to be creative. I am confident in the leadership of our Department of Education that we are going to maximize the resources that Uncle Sam is providing for the Department of Education, and that we got to do it in a methodical way that's sustainable beyond just the 5 years that the money has been giving. This is a substantial amount of money. And so at the same time, though, the government of Guam has to do its fair share in its part, because once that money dries up, what is it going to look like? We're going to have to make sure that we continuously get that support and funding. We cannot go back and severely underfund education and then come back up and say, you guys did it for the last 5 years without that funding. We need the opportunity for growth, and we need that opportunity for innovative ideas and the ways that we can change and adapt to the global education that's going on in our world. Technology has really allowed us to see everything that's going on in the world at a moment's notice, So, yeah, that's it's a tough point at this time.
Right. This makes me wonder, with all of this federal funding that you guys are receiving and the effort to meet the 14 points of the Adequate Public Education Act, I know months ago there was all of this discussion about this other group, and I want to say it was created years ago, and you guys were seeking an opinion by the AG's office.
Yeah,
do they have a say in how this money is spent?
In the financial advisory group, and that was created by the late Speaker Ben Panginan, and it was in response really to the high risk status that the federal government put. And so it was basically to get everybody in the room and to say, okay, Department of Administration, why aren't you giving the funding to the Department of Education? And DOE, what is your priorities in the spending? And usually it's the biggest chunk of it comes to our, of course, personnel costs. But the other thing too is the utilities. And so that was, remember, always the threat. Remember all the threats of power or being disconnected and water being disconnected. I gotta say that the governor, lieutenant governor, in terms of releasing our allotments, have been very consistent, and they've been very good. We've been working well with them. Superintendent has a constant direct communication line with the lieutenant governor on a weekly basis about education. And so if there's anything that pops up, it happens. On to your original question there, Bree, for us, it was, that thing, I think has a shelf life, because, even the OPA and folks were saying, hey, you know what? The department has fixed its finances. We have clean audits. We have all these oversights. You have the legislature oversighting us. You have the OPA oversighting us. Then you have the board finance committee oversighting us. Is it necessary to have this, group meet? And the one thing, though, that's kind of good with that is it brings everybody around the table, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to end. It just means that we got a good thing going in terms of communication with all the heads of these agencies that have to support. So it's also the legislature, the Office of Finance and Budget that's in that. You have the OPA, you have the Department of Administration, and you got the superintendent. And so, over the years, they would come to the board and say, hey, and it's usually after the fact, right? They say, hey, by the way, you got a Code C watch, you need to pay this and that. But then when the money comes in from DOE, we're able to catch up, and it no longer becomes a an issue for the department. But as long as we remove our exposure from the special funds, I was telling Senator Joseph Augustine, like the Territorial Education Facilities Fund, that's usually tied to, really to estate taxes, right? And so if it doesn't come in, sometimes we get shorted in that area, so we got to make money up on the other side. And those are the funds we use to pay for operational costs. So those are the things that, our department had to be creative, but those 14 points really, is it something that we need at this point? Is it something that definitely needs to be revisited? I think we should revisit it. I think there's areas now that that's not in there, or there's areas that we should be removing from there, because just the position that we're in, and that goes to the leadership of the Department of Education. They set up an internal audit office now, and they catch things before, and they're able to audit and review things internally and give the superintendent a heads up if there's a problem. And so those are the things that, really helps our department in having that sure footing. And our goal really, Bree, and when it comes to the finances, is to get this third party off our back. Once we get that high risk status off our back, and we're able to spend the money, and because we know we're managing it properly, and we've come a long way, and our team has done really well in that. So a lot of great successes within the department. Still a lot of challenges, but we're up to it, and we'll keep chipping at it.
All right. Well, we've got another guest that's in the Zoom room, but just real quickly, I know you guys are working on and looking into the possibility of amending the uniform policy.
Yes, and so that's actually being led by our of course, our Safe and Healthy Schools, but our policy, Ms. Gutierrez. We had a meeting about this, and there's a lot of surveys going out there. We need the data, parents. Let us know what you think, because we understand the tough economic situation that people are in. Some people are saying, I cannot afford, uniforms, and there's some people that are saying, I can't afford to send my kid to school every day with different clothes, right? So we need to get the information, and that usually helps guide us in our policy decision. And that message went out. I got a text message from my children's school. I did the survey for all of them. I told my wife to do the same thing. But this is an opportunity for the community to engage with us, so that when we make a policy, or we suspend a policy or something like that, it's based on, what is our general feel of our community. We're also looking at ways that, we can get those students maybe that are hurting. There's vouchers that some of these parents may be able to avail themselves of. And then we're trying to see if we're able to use some of the funding that we had from the Recovery and the Safe School Act to see if we can be able to purchase uniform for all our kids. And that's the discussion that's going on right now. But later part of the month, we'll be able to make those decisions, and I'll be more than happy to come back and brief you folks when that happens.
Thank you, because Mark,
thanks.
All the kids outgrew their uniforms last year, right? staying home and eating.
Right. That's so true. My kids. That's why I say, come and play basketball, boy. We're gonna go exercise.
My boy tried on his shirt, and he looked like one of those cops. So the sleeve was just like cutting off his circulation.
Right
on,
guys.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
That's that. Right on. Keep it up. 9:03. Quick break. Guys.
Yes. Also.
Yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We're going to be streaming a press conference. The Office of the Attorney General and the Guam Police Department have announced that they're going to be holding a press conference, which will stream right here on the link. Bree, in the press conference regarding.
This is